Welcome to Sat Chats, the Bitcoin podcast where we chat about sats. Nice and easy, dude. Sats are the smallest part of a Bitcoin, the same way pennies are the smallest part of a dollar. So whether you're a pre-coiner with no Bitcoin at all, but lots of questions, or a new Bitcoiner who wants an easy conversational way to learn more each day, or an original gangster who bought Bitcoin for a couple $100 a coin. And you've been telling people for 10 years to buy Bitcoin, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And then they text you when it hits an all-time high. You're like, I can't keep trying anymore. You can send us to your friends and family, or you can send them to us, right? So if you're listening, head to satchats.com. Grab your slot today. We'll bring you on the show. We will talk about Bitcoin. We'll taste a little bit of Ithaca hummus, and we'll offer you your choice, $50 or $50 worth of sats. So I'm Stuart, your host, Bitcoin Maxi Extraordinaire. I wear prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from the ultra hot orange heat of my Bitcoin laser eyes.
All right. Yep. And I am Chris. I'm the founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, Bitcoin smash buyer. Proud whole coiner, I'll say. And I'm the co-host.
Let's go. So today we are giving you Keen. This was such an incredible episode for us. You got to strap in tight at the beginning. Keen takes us on a journey from when he was born in the late 40s through computers with 10 megabyte drives that are heavy enough to break your foot, through to all of the advances that we've experienced today, and finally Bitcoin, which he feels is this, quote, sundering technology that represents this massive economic shift. You guys need to listen to go on the journey of technology and see just how far we've come and just how important it is for you to understand and adopt a Bitcoin standard now.
I worked for a computer land just before the world shifted in microcomputers. And that model began to collapse. Then I managed a knockoff of Computerland. That also suffered from the same collapse. When the market changes, it just doesn't support the stuff that used to be there.
Yeah. It's unrelenting.
So my family went through that with tobacco. Eastern North Carolina was tobacco.
Wow.
That whole business collapsed into a larger company with a streamlined process. A lot of companies like China American disappeared, just like computer lands disappeared.
It was you and your generation that experienced the collapse of the computer land. You know, your dad was tobacco land collapse. You were computer land collapse.
Yeah. When I was at the Times, I trained all the foreign correspondents how to sit wherever they were on planet Earth, have a laptop, write their story, and then I taught them how to use 4 keystrokes and a modem to send in 60 seconds their story from where they were to New York.
Keen, what year were you born?
47.
Was there air conditioning?
No.
Was there a reliable electric light inside your home?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Electricity, no problem.
No
air
problem.
conditioning, didn't have it. Was there a phone in your house?
Oh, yeah.
So how old were you when you were first confronted with some technology that made you feel like, wow, this is futuristic?
I was sitting in the New York Times newsroom,
Mm-hmm.
and they rolled, actually it wasn't a microcomputer, it was a mini computer terminal onto that floor, And I said, that's what I said. I said, I didn't have any more control. It's like falling in love. You have no control over. You have just fallen in love.
Yeah.
And
you fell in love with a mini computer that day.
With the technology behind it. And I had to own one of those things. Now, you got to remember, buying an IBM PC was probably 20 to 25% of my year's salary.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's make an equivalent of that. Let's say you're making $40,000 a year, and 10% of that's 25% of that is $10,000. Right. You're making a $10,000 purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're making $100,000, you're laying out $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 for a, honey, are you sure you really want that boat?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Or that whatever it is? It's much easier for us to make these decisions because we know that next year I've got the same amount of money coming in. But when your income is less, the percentage is more impactful. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah.
So I couldn't afford a computer until Osborne came out. Now the Osborne, well, I did buy a computer made by a knockoff. IBM computers cost $4,000 or $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
A 10 megabyte drive, not gigs.
Right.
Yeah.
Megs was astounding. Businesses ran their whole life on that 10 meg drive. If you dropped it on the foot, the next thing was 911 because it weighed, 15 pounds. And if you dropped 15 pounds on your foot in the right way, the next
that's a broken
conversation
toe.
says, doctor, it hurts right there.
Yeah. And these days, by the way, you can send an email attachment that's 10 megabytes.
Sure.
And I almost dropped my laptop last night, and it like literally fell out of my hand. I reached down and I caught it before it hit the ground.
I'm impressed.
Yeah. We've come a long way.
Right.
That's what the incredible thing is. I was thinking about coming over here. We've come so far.
Yes.
And Bitcoin echoes that.
Ooh.
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
The concept of this digital ability to give you money without being tracked, traced, hindered, surcharged, this is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, potentially a sundering piece of technology and advancement in economics. When I say sundering, I mean all of a sudden control. One of the first things a country does is have its own currency, right? They control that.
Right.
Well, it's important to control that.
Yep.
I was thinking the other day, the little notches around a coin?
Mm-hmm.
You know why they have those?
So you can tell if it's been clipped?
Yes. Or shaved off.
Yeah.
Do you mean like coins, like old
like
gold coins? You're talking about like a quarter today.
Yeah.
They want to make sure you don't clip a quarter today. Because there's no valuable content inside, is there?
But it used to be made out of silver.
Right.
I mean, all right, here's a quarter. Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell whether someone has taken a file to that quarter, the edge of that quarter.
Let's see if we can get that here.
And taken that silver. You do that to, 1,000 of them? Pretty soon you have another quarter.
Yeah.
If it's a gold coin, pretty soon you you have all that gold.
Right.
You have stolen it from the next guy.
That's such an important lesson in the history of money right there. Because there came a point in time when coins were made out of very valuable metals like silver and gold.
Well, gold is the standard.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And so what started to happen was the nation state would call all those coins back and they would clip them and then they'd send them back out into circulation. And that was their form of inflation at that point.
Or tax.
Which, I mean, I think inflation is the hidden tax, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the currency that your nation state adopts has a dramatic impact.
Exactly.
Right? But if the United States had chosen not the US dollar, but gold, or maybe today, Bitcoin, what happens to America?
Well, the U.S. did choose gold. It was called the gold standard. And for what? Hundreds of years.
Up until 1971.
There was supposed to be that amount of silver in deposit for every paper silver certificate. I think that's what they call it, a silver certificate.
Yeah.
Certificate said I could go get $1 of silver from this piece of paper. And then we split off from that, probably out of necessity. I was too young and stupid to hear my grandfather say to me, when gold was $32 an ounce, he said, "You're going to come off the gold standard. You ought to buy gold. Buy some gold."
When did your granddad say that to you?
About 1971.
Wow.
Now, I just graduated from college. Like every college graduate, I knew everything and nothing.
Yeah, at the same time.
At the same time, my grandfather had been a businessman all his life. He'd been overseas and all of that. I wish somebody had slapped me upside the head. Just shut your mouth and listen, or learn something, or read these 17 books, or, I just wasn't there.
I think we can all relate to that.
Well, I'm telling you, I lived it. But the thing about Bitcoin is we're on this edge of, as far as I can tell, we're on the edge of a possibility of a very lean transaction economy. The friction, it takes the friction out of transactions, but it also takes the government's hands off of the control or the monitoring or responsibility of the cleanness of the transaction.
And the stewardship of it, right?
Yeah.
They don't have their magic printing machine anymore that they can just say, we want to go do this thing over here, and we are afraid of what might happen if we go to our constituents and we say, we're going to increase taxes so that we can go do our thing.
Yeah.
So instead of doing that, they just go hit print.
More money. Yes. And I can't tell you when I heard a real honest debate about a balanced budget.
From a nation state perspective? Right.
From the U.S. Or having a budget that really represented reality. I think now I'm not an expert at all, so I do a little reading and I think I know something, as if I were a college graduate. But I read that there was a limit on the number of Bitcoins that were going to be mined. And we're approaching that. Well, when there are no more Bitcoins that are mineable,
right,
that's going to really impact stuff in the Bitcoin world, particularly until, somebody invents Dogecoin. You remember that Dogecoin?
Dogecoin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which went somewhere and then nowhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting situation.
So the fact that there is a limited supply of Bitcoin, 21
going
million.
to be.
Right?
Going to be.
Right? So 2025, we have mined something like 19.4 or 19.5 million coins. So there's about 1.5 million coins left to mine. However, the way things work with the predictable supply shock for mining Bitcoin over time, it's going to take all the way until 2138 to mine the remaining 1.5 million.
May I interject a question? What will the impact of the new high-speed, massive chips that Google just announced?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said, well, that's 5, 10, 15 years away from now. But that chip, in a matter of a minute or two, will do what it takes a regular computer the history of time to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to mine a bunch of stuff.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful golden question there. So what happens if a sunderingly powerful computer shows up to mine Bitcoin, right? Like you talked about Bitcoin being a sundering economic, event or technology where we just fully snap from one reality to another. We have regular computers mining Bitcoin right now, right? What happens if a quantum computer shows up and says, I'll solve these blocks like you wouldn't believe, right?
Yeah.
Here's exactly what happens, okay? Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is a program, software, right? And it has been designed to take a look at the amount of computing power that is being put towards mining blocks worldwide and adjust the level of difficulty upward or downward based on how much computing power there is. So when Bitcoin was first out there in the wild, there were only so many computers that were trying to solve these cryptographic puzzles in order to verify transactions and put them onto the blockchain and do the work of the banks and the credit card processors today in a decentralized peer-to-peer pile of tobacco type way, right? So all you needed was your own little laptop. Your own little bitty laptop could mine that Bitcoin and you had enough processing power to do that, okay? And so the difficulty wasn't very high, right? As more and more laptops came online, every 2016 blocks, I believe it is, right? Which is 2016 times 10 minutes worth of time. And I wouldn't even be able to tell you what that is. Is that a couple of weeks? I'm not sure, right? So every 2016 blocks times 10 minutes, whatever unit of, figure out what that is right there. Whatever unit of time that is, Bitcoin will look at the amount of computing power on its network and say, oh man, more computers are online trying to solve the block. Let's ratchet up the difficulty of the cryptographic puzzle so that on average, it takes about 10 minutes to solve a block.
14 days.
Okay, so every 2 weeks, Bitcoin looks at the increase or decrease in total computing power that's being put towards mining Bitcoin and adjusts the difficulty level up or down so that you preserve the 10-minute block, roughly, okay? So what does that mean? In today's terms, we don't just have a handful of cypherpunks running their laptops. We have approximately 20 nuclear reactors worth of power that is securing the network and mining Bitcoin. So it has gotten to that level of difficulty. When a quantum computer rolls up and says, watch this, bam, I'll solve it in a minute. Boom, I'll solve it in a minute. They might mine some blocks for that 2-week period. They might get themselves some Bitcoin, right? That's great, no problem. But as soon as that 2 weeks is up and Bitcoin checks and sees that the hash rate is what it's called, the amount of mining power has skyrocketed, it will skyrocket the difficulty. Be like, no, no, no. Now it's still gonna take you about 10 minutes, right? So that quantum computer might get a small head start, and by the way, I'm sure there'll be more than one guy with a quantum computer, and they'll all jump on and compete, and it will skyrocket the difficulty level, and you'll be back where you started, 10 minutes.
Now, the question, I have a suspicious mind and also hopefully an inquiring mind. We'll start with the inquiry and then go to suspicion. You said we or it or they ratchet up. Is Satoshi still around to be able to ratchet, or is there a committee of ratcheters? And who are they? And are they controllable?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or is it an algorithm?
Okay. So Bitcoin is software that is run by individuals around the world on their computers. It is designed to regulate itself in a way that cannot be manipulated by anyone once it gets started. So it's an unstoppable, inevitable thing. The software says, okay, guys, here are the rules for mining Bitcoin. You have to solve cryptographic puzzles. Once a certain number of blocks have been reached, the reward for doing this work drops from 50 Bitcoin to 25 Bitcoin. No one can change that. If Satoshi is here, he cannot change that, because even though he wrote the program, if he wants to change it and he is alive or she is alive or they are alive, that individual would need to go out to 20,000 plus individuals around the world and say, guys, let's all agree to make a change to how things work. And what do you think those people are going to say?
Which leads me to my suspicious mind.
Okay.
There's not a single person on the earth who is incorruptible. That's just the way we are, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I believe in sin because it is the most common of our attributes. Some of us are more loving, some of us are more ambitious, some of us are more intellectually inclined or whatever, but we all are vulnerable in that core thing of perfect integrity. And, you know, it's a very rare thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On top of that, we have all these giant computers and countries that want to influence this. Let's say that we are the hundreds of people sitting around this table. There are massive numbers of people who want to influence us one way or another. And they're looking to find ways either to influence me so that I will give them an advantage, or they're looking for a way to go around me and you and, you know, all of us here to influence this currency and gain control over whatever, you know. It makes me wonder if a James Bond isn't coming about the world control of Bitcoin or currency or something like that. And there's always a specter out there.
Right, right.
And it's not like Bitcoin is vulnerable to my thinking. It's not like Bitcoin's vulnerable. The world is vulnerable.
Right.
I mean, dollars are, how many shows have we seen about dollar bills being turned into $100 bills by people who wake up that day and that's what they want to do. And so there are going to be people who wake up every day saying, how can I beat this Bitcoin thing?
Right. So let's break that down, right? Because that's a lot right there. Number one, we all saw this in the Lord of the Rings, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Absolutely everyone who gets to a powerful place decides to abuse that position, right? As soon as you become a nation state and you have a monopoly on violence, which means you can protect all your citizens from all the other nation states out there with a big enough stick, right? Also, by the way, means that you have a big enough stick to do whatever you want to your citizens, which means you can print currency and say, this dollar is worth something, homie. You got to work for it. You got to use it. Okay. You got to pay me taxes.
There's the key. You've got to use it. This barter stuff that you're doing over here.
We don't like that.
Yeah. It's so small it doesn't affect anything. But when it gets to be something big, you got to use it. That's an incredible power.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, we don't like any of this pile of logs for some whale oil business, guys, because we have no way to tax this. We have no way to know what happened, right? So humans mess things up. Okay. So why do you want money that is controlled by humans?
Well, if it's not controlled by humans, it's not controlled.
When you think about a computer, you ask it to do something,
right? And
it does it, whether it's tired, happy, sleepy, sad, alive, awake, dead, whatever. The computer just does the task. So computers can be more reliable than humans in many ways, right? They never have any sick days at work. Nothing like that, right? They don't get in a fight with their wife before their shift starts, right? And it tanks their productivity because they're distracted. They execute the program. Bitcoin is a program. And it was created earlier in time. It was worked on by some people, right? And they laid the foundation when things were quiet and there wasn't a lot of attention on it and it was okay. And the nation state wasn't like, uh-oh, what's this? Kill it. But in today's world, that program is executed by 20,000 plus people around the world, right? And they're running a version of Bitcoin. There have been, it update, you can come out with new versions of it over time, right? But if you want the Bitcoin network to adopt a new version of Bitcoin, like for example, a version that is more quantum resistant, or a version that includes, a new change to allow a little bit more information to go inside the transaction, right? Then you have to convince every single individual person or a majority of them to update their computer with that version of Bitcoin. There's a healthy percentage of people out there who are running the first version of Bitcoin still today. They're like, it works. There's nothing wrong here. I'm not going to 1.1. I'm not going to 1.2. I'm not going to 2.0. I'm just running Bitcoin. And the network is composed of nodes that are running different versions of Bitcoin that are compatible with one another, right? And what that does is it keeps any single human, any single nation state from corrupting the money through sin or evil or greed or incentives, etc., right? So the incentives for Bitcoin are all aligned. In the real world with nation states and humans, the incentives are all give me my stuff, right? And human greed and sin leads to problems. But with Bitcoin, as a miner, my incentive is to put my time and energy toward getting those freaking Bitcoins, right? Because if I solve a block today, I get 3.125 Bitcoin, which is over $300,000. Every 10 minutes, I have a chance to make $300,000. Okay. So I'm going to be mining my face off, right? And what that means is I'm incentivized to secure the network with my computing power, right? If I'm a node, I'm checking the transactions, right? My incentive is to check the miner's work and say, yep, this is true. These transactions happen. There's no funny business. No coins were clipped in this transaction. No additional money was printed out of nowhere in this transaction. That Bitcoin, if I look all the way back to the beginning of when it was mined, I can see in the big old blockchain, which is basically a public spreadsheet everyone can see, I trace it all the way. That's Keen's Bitcoin. He's sending it to Stuart. It's Stuart's Bitcoin now, right? And if I own Bitcoin, if I have Bitcoin, I want the nodes to work. I want the miners to work, et cetera, right? So everyone is motivated by their own personal ability to gain wealth and add value to their life. Every single person in Bitcoin is, right? If you have Spectre out there and they want Bitcoin, they have to work for it just like we do. Everybody has to work for Bitcoin. There's no way that they can do more work, right? If they're like, hey, I hate working, I'm going to work so hard that I take over 51% of the network. I'm going to put so many nodes. There's 20,000 computers right now that are all saying, this is correct, this is correct, this is correct. I'm going to go put 20,000 more computers onto the network so that I can get to 51% of all the nodes. And then I'm going to say this transaction, this fake transaction occurred, right? I'm going to have so much computing power that I can trick everyone into believing a false transaction has occurred. Let's imagine that, okay? If I get to the point where I've done that much work to control the nodes verifying the transactions, and I say this fake transaction occurred, number one, if that ends up happening, everyone will lose confidence in Bitcoin because it can be hacked, it can be manipulated. The value of Bitcoin goes to zero and all my hard work is gone. Because the network I hacked into, I ended up tanking it to zero myself. So Bitcoin on a stage 1 level has the ability to protect itself by saying, if you corrupt me, we're all going down.
Suicide.
Yeah.
You can't hurt me.
Correct.
I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah. Bitcoin will destroy itself in response to you corrupting it, right? Now, what's more likely is that you'll do all that work, you'll get all that power, and you'll go, well, hang on. Now that I have 51% of what I need to control Bitcoin, okay, I actually have the greatest chance of solving these daggum blocks. So instead of attacking the network, I'll just transform into the largest supporter of it instead. And I'm going to solve half the blocks. I'm going to get half the $300,000 payouts every 10 minutes. Every hour, I'm going to make $900,000. Forget this. I'm not attacking this thing. Now I'm its biggest fan. So the second layer is that in your attempt to attack Bitcoin, you in fact become its biggest fan instead. Bitcoin is incredible. It is a sundering piece of technology, right? It is unassailable, okay? And it takes the humanity out of a very tricky space, which is time, energy, money, etc., and says, look, guys, I don't care if there is a 9/11, if there is a war on terror, if there is a financial crisis, if there is a pandemic. You can't make more Bitcoin, guys. You can't print more money. You can't flood the market. You can't stimulate. This is it, right? It's coming out every 10 minutes, 3.125 new Bitcoin every 10 minutes. That's it, guys. Sorry.
Until you hit the max.
Until you hit the max.
And then inflation stops completely.
Done.
See, that's another thing I was thinking. What happens when you hit the limit? It's like you're on the gold standard, but you can't have any more gold because you've mined all the gold there is to mine. The only way to get more gold is to steal it.
Okay. And Bitcoin is stolen every day. Okay.
I just made that up. I mean, there are other ways, I'm sure.
Well, you could go to Mars. You could go find an asteroid.
And get more gold there?
Right. So there you can find more gold, right? But here's where I'm coming from, okay? Most of us believe that for an economy to grow, the money supply must also.
Yeah, I think I read something in general about that.
Mm-hmm.
We just came out as the discussion about Canada, and talk about a disruptive influence in politics.
Yep.
And just
Well, what do you think about that concept, though? In order for economy to grow, its supply of money has to grow. Do you think
absolutely that's true, because a growing economy is increased numbers of transactions.
Mm-hmm.
Just more is produced, more is getting done, more people are buying, more people are producing, more people are selling, more people are buying. That's economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have the means to pay more people for more things.
Mm-hmm.
Got to have more currency.
So couldn't that problem be solved by just changing the scale of the supply that already exists, and instead of going up, going down?
You mean dividing bitcoins into, what do they call them?
100 million Satoshis a pop. Yeah.
Or pennies into tenths of a penny. Like wouldn't that be better to have?
Canada's already made that decision. Do you know they don't have pennies?
Yeah.
They did away with pennies.
Right.
Because they decided they were valueless,
Mm-hmm.
or it cost much more to process the pennies than they just go by nickels.
So think about it like this. We all feel like we must print more money to represent the increase in productivity of an economy. Just like you said, make more stuff.
Let's go back to, you need more money to expand the economy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an economist, and I don't play one on TV either.
Mm-hmm.
But the government needs to buy more shells.
Okay.
Because they sold all the shells, or they gave the shells to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And Ukraine's shooting off those shells to beat the band.
Right.
They just need more money or credit backed by dollars to be able to buy, more shells. So they buy more shells. You got to have more money, right?
No, you don't. So here is where Bitcoin creates a whole new way to go about things. Let's imagine we reach 21 million Bitcoin. It's the year 2138. You have replaced most of your parts with cyborg items. Somehow Keen is still alive. Okay. You've got great grandkids now. Okay. You don't have arthritis in your hand. You got the Kung Fu grip now. All right. You don't have bad knees. You have rocket boosters in your feet. So you're the man. Okay. We get to 21 million Bitcoin. Let's imagine that a particular nation state operates on a Bitcoin standard at this point. Like, you know what? We're done with our silly paper. That was horrible, guys. We messed everything up. And we're not going to try for gold or silver or any of that. We think Bitcoin is money. Like El Salvador today, Bitcoin is money. Okay. So
I did not know that.
Yeah.
El Salvador is a Bitcoin economy.
They have completely revitalized their economy.
Yeah. They accept Bitcoin and US dollars, but just making Bitcoin legal currency alongside US dollars that's a whole nother amazing thing.
Yep. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's
blew
fine.
My mind.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. So I guess let's do it. This is easier. Let's imagine the world is on a Bitcoin standard now, 2138. Not going to worry about nation states. The entirety of Earth now uses Bitcoin as its money. Okay. But there's only 21 million. So what happens is this: as the productivity of the economy increases, we've made breakthroughs. Okay. Now AI does things. Now quantum does things. Now energy is cheaper, whatever, right? The amount of Bitcoin does not increase along with it. So if you take the total economy and you divide it by 21 million Bitcoin, then one Bitcoin gets you 1/21 millionth of that economy. Let's imagine the economy increases its productivity and now it's twice as productive. Still the same amount of Bitcoin. So you take that economy, you divide it by 21 million Bitcoin. Now your one Bitcoin gets you twice as much of that economy as it did earlier in time. So what you're doing is you're simply dividing greater productivity into the amount of money available, which means the money you have buys you more and more and more and more over time.
So a dollar increases in value, just like my 0.0025 of a Bitcoin has increased since I decided to throw a little bit of money into a portion of a Bitcoin.
Because you know what's not happening? There's no nation state sitting on top of the whole thing, siphoning the productivity gains off by printing more money. It's 8 billion people. There's 8 billion people on Earth working for 8 billion people. Our combined productivity benefits everyone.
So long as your money is divisible into smaller and smaller pieces, you can accommodate an economy of any size. So there are 21 million Bitcoin. It's like, that might not be a lot of Bitcoin, but there's 100 million Satoshis in each Bitcoin, which means there's a 21 schmillion Satoshis that are available. There's more Satoshis than anybody's ever going to need, right? And by the way, since it's software, if we do reach a level where you have hyper Bitcoinization and there aren't enough Satoshis to go around, and they're going the way of the Canadian penny, it's software. Now, how about there's 100 million Jamoshis in each Satoshi? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. What matters is that there is a limited supply and no human can manipulate, debase, or increase the amount of Bitcoin there is.
Though it is a human decision to go from 1,000 Satoshis to 1,000,000 Satoshis.
But it's not one human's decision or a small group of humans' decision.
And nobody needs to decide to divide a Bitcoin, right? You know, if we get to the point where we need something smaller than a Satoshi, you can put another layer of technology on top that says, okay, I know it's 100 Satoshis, you know it's 100 Satoshis, but for the purposes of transactions and the velocity of money, we're going to break it up into even smaller units, and it's fine.
You're talking about a universal monetary system.
Yes.
Oh, yes. My goodness.
Bitcoin's the first one of those.
You know what China thinks of the universal economic system of dollars?
I think they like it.
No. They use it. They depend on it. But they want their currency to be the universal, the gold standard, so to speak.
They actually have two currencies, don't they?
I'm not a scholar on Chinese stuff.
China has one money it uses inside China. It has one money it pays other people with.
That's right.
You think the U.S. dollar is a fugazi that is floating out there in a maelstrom of nonsense? China has two swirling saucers of ridiculousness.
I believe you're right. And on top of that, they use dollars for all of you people who are not Chinese.
Yeah.
there's so many mind-blowing concepts, and we hadn't even gotten to my next question, which we probably don't have time for.
Well, what is it?
The interaction of AI and Bitcoin.
Cool.
The code, because you've got this code over here written by humans,
Mm-hmm.
and this code over here written by humans. And I have to say, I believe we're on the edge of Skynet, honestly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
with AI. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. That's not even an original thought.
Right.
None of mine are.
There's a book out by, I have to look it up real quick, but it's about the future of AI. Henry Kissinger. It was published after his death, and a couple of other guys have talked about the future of AI, and they're just saying, this thing can go berserk. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. What's the Peter principle?
Yeah, Murphy's Law or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Murphy's Law.
Right.
Peter principle talked about 80-20 and stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Right. The Pareto.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
That's
So,
right. But that area, and we prove it with the dollar. The United States controls the dollar, monitors the dollar, prints the dollars, mints the coins, and all that kind of stuff. And we've had how many Bonnie and Clydes in our history? I mean,
people have fears, right?
absolutely.
Right. And just because I have some fire doesn't mean I'm going to burn you. It might mean I'm going to sit you down and cook you a steak. So let's review what we've gone over here.
You got to remember that.
We've started off in the late 40s where we had open windows and attic fans and piles of tobacco and a party line. Okay. We're going through to, sending stories from around the world to New York City, selling computers at Computerland, and then pushing all the way into the space where we have personal computers, now smartphones, now AI. And my favorite word from this entire show today has been your use of the term sundering. We have Bitcoin, which represents a sundering of what was into what will be, right? So we've covered a huge amount of territory here, and I think this is going to be an absolute banger and a doorstop.
No question.
I want to ask you how you feel after having this conversation with us today.
I'm just as excited as I was before. Only I feel more informed. I feel personally more encouraged. What you don't understand, you're more likely to fear.
Mm-hmm.
The more you understand it, the more you're able to work with or use. I think Bitcoin or something like it, but Bitcoin's out there and it has withstood even an assault by some very rich people, Dogecoins or Dogecoins or whatever that was.
Mm-hmm. Get the hell out of Dogecoin.
That's right. You do have people dodging that coin. So I'm looking forward to exploring this more, reading a little bit more. I'll probably spend some of my YouTube education time on Bitcoin.
Nice. Okay. So what we'll do then.
And I'm not selling my 0.0025.
Good idea.
Right. Wait, and by the way, 0.0025 means you have 250,000 sats. That's what it means. You have 0.0025 Bitcoin, also known as 250,000 sats. Okay. So now we'll make you an offer.
Yeah. So, Keen, at the end of every show, we like to offer our guests a sign of gratitude just
Value for value.
value for value. Okay. We like to compensate our guests for their time, and we give each guest a choice between $50 in USD state. What do you call it?
Nation state paper featuring Ulysses S. Grant.
Right.
Nation state paper, or the equivalent of that $50 in Satoshis today.
Right
I'll
now.
take the Satoshis.
Okay.
So, it doesn't even matter how many there are.
I didn't even have to calculate it,
Wow.
which is a great sign. So,
Oh my.
Now, that's an interesting thing. I just made a trust decision.
yes.
The trust decision was you're going to give me somewhat near the value of that right now,
Yes.
not tomorrow, not a year from now,
Uh-huh.
but the transaction.
Yes.
But I would have to say you don't have to do it in a way that causes me to do any homework, because I think Bitcoin is going to explode in value as it has been this past year.
Mhm.
When was it at 56,000?
It-
2 years
the-
ago?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
58K gang was, over the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, it was really recent.
And then basically November, it went boom.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things are going to go whoop because of the political change that is going to take place. And
It's happening today.
We're going to have rough waters. I don't know what a Bitcoin's worth today. Was it
$104,000 right
104?
now. Almost 105.
Last night it was 110.
Yesterday it was 99.
Yeah.
It goes up and down and up and down.
It does. It does.
I'll
it
still
does.
take those Bitcoins.
So
let me calculate this.
For the sat pack in the chat. Let's see how many sats
So-
that Keen is going to get.
So we are going to timestamp right now what $50 worth of Bitcoin is
look.
worth.
Yeah,
right now.
let's do
Okay,
it right now.
that is 953 Satoshis per dollar that I'm reading off of the Clark Moody dashboard here.
Mhm.
So I'm going to take 953, and I'm going to multiply that by $50. That gives you 47,650 sats.
That's a whole lot more than I got right now.
Okay, so
No. You have 250,000.
Oh,
So this will
okay.
take you up close to 300,000.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I
Yep.
have the equivalent of about $250
okay,
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to get that to me?
Well, we're going to talk about that after the show.
Yeah.
All right.
The
'cause
answer
I
is-
think that is an absolutely fascinating aspect of this.
Yeah.
Real life, down to earth, how do it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the answer is very
I know
easily.
that should have been does, but
Right.
anyway.
The answer is very easily, right? We'll get you, if you have downloaded a banking app to your phone and logged in or set up an account,
Yeah.
you can get yourself a wallet on your phone and we'll shoot the Satoshis to your wallet.
I love it.
It's over, right? So
Peer to
it
peer.
is
No third party.
about as easy as it gets. Now, you already just YOLO'd into the Satoshis, which is amazing. Keen just yeeted himself, doesn't even care how many there are, which is amazing.
Well, let's pretend for a second you're still considering, right? Because you just saw the 47,650. You
Now-
got the $50.
What we'll do here is before you make that choice, okay,
All right.
we will ask you to make another very important choice, which is which flavor of Ithaca hummus did you select for today's show?
I think I did the beet.
Yes.
Love.
Whoa, now this is fun
All right.
because we haven't tried this on the show yet.
I want you to know this hummus is the best hummus I have ever had. Now, I'm not a hummus.
Yeah. You don't need to be.
So first of all, Keen is the man because he understands Bitcoin is a sundering technology and is ready for the sats no matter how many we're going to be giving him based on the exchange rate.
Yeah.
And he knows that Ithaca hummus is good. Even more, this guy, he's got it all down pat.
Well, here's the thing. I've had so much fun that I was paid already. To be able to explore these things without, somebody turning red in the face
Mm-hmm.
or saying, "No, you're crazy."
Mm-hmm.
That to me is really rich.
Yeah.
Conversation
Yeah.
is critically important. I could go off into Joe Rogan, but I won't.
That'll be episode 2 featuring Keen, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. There's definitely going to be a part 2 here.
Let's
Probably 3, 4,
let's
5.
all try this together.
All right,
So
here you go.
don't. We had one guy that just started. You go first. Grab yourself some woven wheat. Get you a fat glob. And my nutritionist said I can have some fat globs of this.
Your nutritionist put you on a limit?
Well, no, I'm actually trying to eat a whole bunch more so that I can get big and strong.
He's trying to bulk.
And since we tape 2 shows a day, I'm like losing out on lunch. And she's like, you can just rip. She was like, your 400 calories of snacks are built in. So here we go.
400 calories.
No, it's not. I'm saying I'm going to eat a bunch of it.
All right, so lemon and beet.
Okay.
Okay. And these beets, by the way, they're not cooked canned beets. Okay, we take beets out of the field, and they are lightly right. They're basically
I love
raw.
this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Little sweet. Doesn't taste earthy or dirty. Like people think beets are like dirty and earthy. Not this.
But I'm glad for my choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not the big hummus guy.
Yeah.
My wife and also my daughter can put together a charcuterie tray that can replace salad and steak.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the calories and the enjoyableness of it. And so I'm not unaware of hummus and all those things. I can tell you, they love Ithaca hummus. Now, hummus by itself, I would never say that's the centerpiece of a charcuterie tray. But I could put that at the center.
Ooh.
That's such a good.
Wow.
That's such a good quote.
Let Ithaca hummus hold down the center of your charcuterie tray.
I love it.
You can't put none of that big box hummus paste
The
in
round
the center.
container, the round plastic container.
No. You need Ithaca hummus if you want it to be the centerpiece of your charcuterie.
It's a whole different taste. Hummus often has a dirt taste.
You know why? You know why?
Made of dirt.
Well, they put, in my opinion, okay, they put too much tahini. All that tahini is like, it's got this bitter taste.
I almost said bitter,
aftertaste.
but you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now let's flip back over to your choice, and you've already made it, which I love.
Yeah.
And we'll just review for the Sat Pack hanging out in the chat here. 50 US bucks, which will likely buy you $20 worth of stuff later, or how many sats there? 47,650, which will likely buy you more than $50 worth of stuff later.
Especially because I'm going to save this, and this would be spent on 2 hamburger meals.
Right. Which you got so expensive these days.
They're going berserk. It's just amazing. The prices. I personally felt like lots of companies said, I cannot hold it back anymore. I've simply got to raise prices.
Yeah.
And I've got permission in this time, or we feel we've got
100%.
permission, and the prices are going up like this
Yeah.
all the time.
Yep.
Amazing.
So I still want the 47,650.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay. Let me shake your hand here, Keen.
Yeah,
Amazing.
for sure. Absolutely.
So thank you
What
so
a pleasure.
much for coming on this show. Keen, you're literally a legend. This guy is the man.
yeah.
And we cannot wait to have you back on the show. For everyone that's out there on YouTube, like this video. Tell the algorithm that you love Keen as much as we do. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube, right? Join the Sat Pack. That's all you got to do is tap on the screen or the smartphone. It couldn't be easier. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we're going to unlock a live Friday morning show for you all where we're all going to jump in. We're going to chat about Sats live weekly. It's going to be amazing. Sat Chats is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. Our guests' views are their own.